It takes a village to protect your data set, especially in a global environment, and you're really out to take care of the employees' data. So you do have to kind of circle the wagons and protect each other in that regard. And that's the CIO. The CIO has had to be a team champion, a cheerleader, a facilitator, an administrator, an ideator, an innovator, a strategist, and at the same time be able to deliver tactical change to an organization to really be effective today.
Technology is transforming how we think, how we lead, and how we win. From InterVision, this is Status Go, the show helping IT leaders move beyond the status quo, master their craft, and propel their IT vision.
Welcome to Status Go. I'm your host, Jeff Tunn, InterVision's Strategic IT Advisor. In today's episode, we're bringing back a guest we had on the show in the early days. I think it was about episode 14 or 15 or something like that. At the time, Jamie Lee was the CIO for Wabash National, a tractor-trailer manufacturer. Today, Jamie is 18 months into his role as CIO with Ecobat, a world-leading recycler of batteries. This gives us a unique opportunity to chat with Jamie about his transition and relocation, as well as his views on the CIO role and the changing landscape. Welcome back to Status Go, Jamie.
Good to be with you, Jeff.
Man, it is always so good to talk to you, and it's great to catch up. I know it's been a while since you and I chatted, and looking forward to catching up. Why don't we start with a little bit about your career journey to refresh our listeners' minds a little bit. Tell us a little bit of your career and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, okay. Well, honestly, I've been doing IT and kind of business transformation through IT for going on, 25, maybe 30 years now. Went to college, went to University of Purdue University, graduated in 1994. Really just had a love for technology and how computers could help people, and eventually turned it into a love for helping businesses succeed. And got educated in it and went into consulting at Ernst & Young. Spent a lot of time after Ernst & Young in various companies, mostly manufacturing, supply chain type of companies, and helping them catch up the technology wave, really, and kind of leverage digital to be more efficient and to drive kind of insights across the businesses. It ended up taking me overseas. I lived overseas for a while and implementing SAP through several different countries, and kind of still do that today, and targeted to do that with Ecobat now.
Oh, excellent. It kind of brings it back full circle. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Well, talk to us a little bit about your relocation to Dallas. You went to university right up the road from Indianapolis, where you and I met here in Indy, and now you're out in Dallas. Talk about how that relocation went for you personally, and then how it went for you professionally.
No, sure. And round about March of 2020, I think the pandemic was pretty strong and moving on, and I left Wabash during that time frame, and was kind of scratching my head, looking at the next opportunity, and kind of taking a pause and saying, let's think about things. Where's the next opportunity? How can I be of service to another company? And for about 6-8 months, I looked at doing consulting and thinking about, okay, if I'm going to go lead again, where's that going to be? And I got contacted by Spencer Stewart and for a private equity based company in Dallas, and I thought, Dallas, Texas, okay. I could deal with a little warmer weather, but also looked at the opportunity as to what's in the marketplace. And if you were studying, back then, the demographics of people movement and certainly what was happening in the pandemic, there's a lot of people coming to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, certainly chock full of different headquarters and different types of businesses where, kind of IT and technologists could apply their craft, their skill, their profession. And so the big question for me at the time was, will I move? the
Yeah.
roles here. Indiana's been home for a long, long time. And I just kind of looked back and said, I turned 50 this year. Uh, we're not getting any younger. If I were to look back in 15 years, would I be upset, that I didn't make a bold move? And I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
yes, I would be upset. And just so happened that my kids were in high school, middle school, and elementary school, and they were all in agreement to make the move. They were excited about it, and I call it my big cowboy adventure. So we're trying to we're trying to have fun with it, but it has been fun. We're not just trying; we are having fun with it. There's lots to do. Certainly, a little bit of emotions, a lot of physical move, a lot of a lot of hard work in it, but well worth the journey thus far.
Well, I was going to ask how the impact was on your family. It seems like they were up for the adventure.
They were, and I knew I could lock it in when my high school daughter had one already in college at Purdue, but my high school daughter said, "I'm ready," and she's in the middle of high school. And I thought, well, if
Wow.
she's ready, of any of them, with all the friends and groups and everything, that would work. But I've been very, very pleased. She's doing tremendously well down here. There's great schools and so forth, and so it's all been God's blessing. But we are smiling and having fun and enjoying the weather to boot.
That's outstanding. And today here in Indiana, it's 40 degrees. The wind's blowing about 30 miles an hour, and I have not seen the sun in a couple of days. So, well,
Well, you'll have to come down, enjoy a steak, and wear your cowboy boots.
hey, I might have to do that, man. You might get me down there. Um, when we talked way back in episode 14, 15, it would have been, probably, gosh, at that point, maybe 2019, 2018, when we were first starting the podcast, Jamie, when
Yeah.
when we talked. And you talked a lot at that time, not only with us on Status Go, but in some of the other places where you were being interviewed about your customer's customer, your view of how you, as CIO, need to reach through to the end customer. 18 months in at Ecobat, have you been able to do that, or are you focused on the task at hand in getting your arms around what there is inside Ecobat?
No, I still think that's a great problem to study for any business, and this is why. And yes, I have gotten my hands around it at Ecobat. If there's one thing that products and services pass on to any customer, whether they're the first, second, or third step in the consumption of that service or product, it's cost and price. And
Mhm.
at Ecobat, where we are recycling batteries to put the materials back out into the marketplace, we have to do that in an efficient manner, in a manner that is sustainable, okay, and then also a benefit to society. And so,
Mhm.
Jeff, you're a customer of mine. You're not a direct customer. You don't make the batteries, but eventually you'll consume that energy in
Yep.
either your car or your data center or your hospital. You'll get to experience what we do, and if we don't do it well, essentially batteries go into landfills, and then
Yeah.
eventually, Jeff, you as a customer experience that in your air quality and your water quality. And so we've got a couple different initiatives coming out where we really want to focus on the impact we're making in society. And we are a sustainability company. We do care about the environment, but we also care about reuse. And so my customer's customer is you. You
Yeah.
leverage
Yeah.
the batteries that are made by the battery manufacturers, and we feed them the stocks to go into that on a circular economy sort of basis.
Are you starting to see? You mentioned environmental. You mentioned the social impact. So ESG, the whole concept of environmental, social, and governance, sustainability and governance rather. Are you seeing an uptick in that in your industry, that people are paying attention to that more, and are coming to you looking for maybe some help? Coming to you being Ecobat.
No, I undoubtedly, us guys in IT like to think about clicks and likes and impressions and social media and so forth. I can tell you from what we've seen demonstrated in the numbers that we are getting followership and brand recognition for a lot of that messaging. So, that would tell somebody in marketing that there is an interest in that, whether it's
Hmm.
the customer's customer or the battery manufacturers themselves or the end consumers of stored energy, which is what kind of we produce.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I do think that there's an interest in that. I believe in our heart of hearts as people, we're interested in the mission of what our company does. But sadly, I think over the last, uh, I'll call it the industrial age, it was difficult for us to attach our effort or the value that we would add in any company. I think it was difficult for us to associate it to the end goal of the mission because a lot of times it was just about cost management,
Hmm.
efficiencies and
Yeah.
driving cost out of the equation rather than saying, are we fulfilling our mission? Does anybody remember what the mission statement was? and,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah, so there's a really good book out called Mission Drift, and it describes places like Harvard University, and it started a couple hundred years ago, and drifted from its mission.
Hmm.
And so many companies go through that. Our mission at Ecobat is understood. It is, I believe, growing in respect and is certainly beneficial for society. So we're going to continue to play to that and deliver to it.
And as I was reading today in preparation for our conversation, Jamie, Ecobat has its roots uh, about 100 years old or more. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually have one plant in Germany that has been what we do in some of our plants is called secondary smelting.
Hmm.
That has actually been in operation for several centuries.
Wow.
And you can kind of go back, to the Knights Templar days where they were, making swords and shields and things out of different metals and so forth. And all of that is still with us today. We just don't produce swords. We
Yeah.
produce batteries, and they go into our cars and they propel us down the road.
That's pretty cool. That rich history, and then bringing it forward into the 21st century and uh, continuous reinvention. I think that speaks well for the organization.
Yeah.
I want to shift now to your journey the last 18 months.
Hmm.
You walk in there at Ecobat, transition and move your family, relocate down to Dallas. What have you been focused on from a technology perspective, from your team perspective?
Well, it's definitely been getting to the cloud, and I'll post haste.
Hmm.
When you look at an organization that is behind more than one decade, maybe even two, in technology investment, um, it's a real thing to overcome. The amount of time that's gone on that technology has evolved and the company hasn't made use of it or used or invested in it to its advantage.
Hmm.
And so how do you take, call it 20 or 30 years, and turn a company around technologically in three?
Yeah.
Um, the main staple in that equation, or the main variable in that equation, is to go to the cloud. And you have to stop playing the game of we can do it better internally, and you have to start playing the game of we need to buy it versus build it, and
Hmm.
we need to catch up because data tells a story, and data delivers insights. Insights deliver opportunities. And in today's fast-paced world, if your business is not moving as fast as the world around you, well, you're probably at risk of being commoditized, or uh, an existential threat's going to remove you from the marketplace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to have data. You have to have it at your fingertips, and it cannot be as slow as the systems from 3 decades ago.
This race to the cloud, as you were going into this role, you'd been through the interview process. Did you have a pretty good idea in your mind that that is where you were going to need to take your organization, or was this something you saw once you got your boots on the ground, so to speak?
No, I had completed enough homework on where the company was at to know that I didn't want to come in and kind of hem haw on a decision as to whether cloud was going to be our first portion of our strategy.
Hmm.
And I made it very clear when we came in that, I'm not going to apologize for where we're at. This is a must. We need to figure out how to get there and how to operate it once we are. And
Yep.
so that it was a foregone conclusion that that was a competitive advantage that we would have to instill and take on, and not really kind of beat around the bush. So we got after it as soon as I got in. We started moving many things to Azure, and started leveraging the Microsoft and SAP relationships.
Hmm.
And now we're sitting a year into our S4 HANA project,
Oh yeah.
and we have a fully hosted private cloud ERP sitting in Germany for us. And it's going to be it's another thing that's going to drive competitive advantage, as I believe we were the first SAP Rise customer in the United States as of January of 2021.
Oh wow, wow. How did you convey that vision to your team and get them to come with you on this journey?
Well, like any good leader, Jeff, I leveraged a crisis.
Yeah, never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
Ways. You said it. You said it. And oddly enough, or rightly so, four days into my employment with Ecobat, we had a major cyber attack in Germany that
Oh
shut a lot
wow.
of our systems down. And so, for the next 45 days, I spent time recovering what was not a huge ransomware event, but enough to signal to the board that we've got a big problem and we need to fix it quickly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so we were off to the races and slamming networks together and domains together and coming up to just ecobat.com. And then, putting everything in from Dell SecureWorks to CrowdStrike and all the tools that we could throw at cyber. I had an open checkbook to make it right. And that's why I say, you never, like you said, don't let that crisis go to waste. But I was also due to present on a common ERP because we have about 27 different ERPs globally, and we already have an in-house SAP environment. So, the goal was to get to one best of breed SAP
Yes.
version, which at the time was S4 HANA in the cloud. And so it honestly it was an easy pitch. Yes, we're talking big dollars, we're talking millions, but the board saw the need for the investment, and was not going to shy away from it. And I think they have pretty good trust and confidence that we're going to deliver.
Yeah. So you walk in the door, and 4 days later, there's this cyber emergency. W- We haven't mentioned, but when you walked in the door, there's also this thing going on called a global pandemic.
Hmm.
How did that impact what you were trying to do with your organization and this transformation?
Well, there were definitely some pluses to it. There are definitely some cons. I would say there are probably more cons than pluses. Some of the pluses had to do with just being able to kind of uh, have people focus on exactly what it was they were, required to do in the
Hmm.
organization, which allowed us
Hmm.
time to understand their workload and kind of redefine work. But it didn't happen and the minus was it didn't happen at the pace you would normally have it happen if you were all together in an office. There's so much communication that goes on with people and so much appreciation for teamwork when you're together, that these are things that you just say in the hallway that you don't email, and you would never think of jumping on a Teams call to say. And so the pandemic slowed us down in ways, and in some ways it helped people kind of redefine why they do what they do.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit of mental level setting. At the same time, we're balancing workload and the who, what, and where of why we do what we do. But I can tell you that when you plan a transformation of the size of SAP, it's optimistic to think that in a pandemic world with government mandated lockdowns, I'm not saying, someone's sick and they shouldn't be home for the day. That's absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah.
In a government mandated lockdown world, the pace of progress absolutely slows.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
transformation is done in person. It can't be mailed in. And I think we're coming back to that. But when we started our transformation journey, it was assumed that the pandemic would be over in the summer of 21,
Right.
and I'm sorry, maybe even the fall of no, yeah, the summer of 21, and most certainly in 22. And of course, as you know, we've gone into a second full year of the thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we're coming out. I'm optimistic we're coming out. I'm seeing more and more faces in the office. Texas pretty much stayed in the office through it all, but
Mhm.
not every business did. Most businesses accommodated a hybrid work schedule, which is great. But for the most part, we're all coming back in, and it's exciting again.
Are you having trouble with staffing because of the people want to work remote, they want to work from home, they want to work from anywhere in the world? Are you seeing that impact trying to build your team and grow your team?
Absolutely, and it's a natural question out of anybody's mouth that is interviewing for a position. And we have to respond with an answer that meets the needs of today's society, and we do, and we offer hybrid and we offer full remote, but not unlike even the tech companies in the West Coast are defining what work means,
Mhm.
and even some of them are saying, hey, these roles have to be in person. You have to come into the office. This work is relevant for teamwork, and teamwork makes the dream work. So
Yeah.
we're here to dream. Let's execute to it. But our interviewees are definitely asking about it, and some are turning down positions if that type of work has to be in person.
Mhm. When you're an international company, don't you have teams in various locations around the globe, or are they all in Dallas?
No, you're right. They are, and they're regional. When
Mhm.
you are an acquisition of acquisitions, you generally have full back offices at every
Every
site,
location,
at
right,
every
right.
location. Yeah. So, and that's the way we are currently. We're a matrixed organization. We're growing, but we're having fun meeting people and knowing the teams and getting to know each other as a one Ecobat team to take on this great mission that we have. Um, but they are disparate, and we have had to take care of people remotely in the different countries.
Mhm.
Yeah, because to your point, they're not all sitting in Dallas.
Yeah, that I mean, that just adds to the complexity of what you're having to deal
Hmm.
with the transformation, geopolitical challenges, pandemic challenges. It's probably daunting at times.
It is, and I'll add that when you look at the labor laws and employment in different countries, you have a mixed bag almost in every country as to what is policy, what is regulatory, constraints, or I'll say rule sets that you have to follow and you need to take care of. And there's data privacy issues and so forth that you also
Mhm.
need to address, especially things like GDPR in Europe. And all of that is changing as we speak, large in part to probably a knock on globalism versus nationalism.
Mhm.
And so companies need to take care of that they're being cognizant of the data privacy rules. I think that's going to be something that you're going to see more about uh, as nationalism starts to take more of a front seat again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think the solutions that you're building out, SAP being the the ERP that it is, I'm sure from a technical perspective, it's got the capabilities to do some of that data segmentation across geopolitical lines.
It does, and I've honestly been pleased with SAP's Rise program. It's something new. Christian Klein, the CEO, introduced in January of 21, and we just happened to be right on the cusp as it came out to do licensing and so forth with an approved project. And the team they put around you in that journey is good, and it's
Mhm.
really the first time in my career I've seen them come forward with putting wrapping a team around a company versus the sales agent signing the document and saying good
Right.
luck.
See you
Uh,
later.
yeah, so I've been pleased with that, and that's quite honestly the only reason we went forward is because we knew we would have that as a backdrop. But it is an international business. Well, very proven in our industry. Whether you're in the chemical processing industry or in the metals business, like we are,
Mhm.
it works for that.
For our listeners that may not know what Rise is, could you describe what that entails?
Sure. The SAP RISE program was a new licensing approach and implementation approach for moving your ERP into the cloud. So I consider it more like a menu. Okay, I'm
Mhm.
ordering these things. This is my price. Here's my checklist. Set up my system. And while it's a little more technical than that, and all of the
Mhm.
IT people know that, um, it was kind of that easy. And in 40 to 60 days, I'll say 60 days from the time we started signing papers, we had a full on ERP landscape accessible to us in the cloud and
Mhm.
domiciled in Germany with failover for disaster recovery. So, yeah, that's scale at speed in the
Yeah.
cloud ERP days.
And you've mentioned speed several times in our conversation. And when people think of industrial or manufacturing, they don't always think of speed. How are you able to bring that concept of speed to your organization and help drive that really that part of the transformational change?
For me, it all starts with the strategies. What are we trying to achieve and by when? That really will be the pace setter to everything else and how it aligns up. I think many companies miss out on strategy deployment and cascading, kind of what their X is or what their mark is to the marketplace on through the organization. So a lot of times the C-suite will understand it, no one else,
Hmm.
and a lot of times, middle management will have a different plan than the C-suite, and they won't be aligned, and so you kind of get pushes and pulls. The real key to driving that speed is what are you trying to accomplish? How fast are you trying to accomplish it? Uh, and what do you need to do it? So first define your what, then define your how, and run at the pace of your how to get to your what.
Hmm.
To say it a little bit more simply. Um, and that's what we've been doing is aligning ourselves to our mission here at Ecobat. Um, and I can tell you we're moving a lot faster than we were just 2 years ago. And it's all with purpose to remain competitive for my customer's customer, as
Yeah.
we were just talking about.
When you look back on the last couple of years, maybe even going back to when you were on Status Go, like I say, back in 18 or 19, has the role of the CIO changed? And if so, how?
Indeed, it has. And I'm sure many of the listeners are probably some are practitioners in cyber, some are practitioners in applications, analytics, IoT, maybe even applying virtual reality as we're seeing more of that in HoloLens and so forth. The CIO has to really be thinking competitive digital automation and digital reach. And
Hmm.
it's less about any one avenue of a technology and more about how do I bring this basket of strategies for how we can help the company achieve its mission through digital. And to pick on RPA or to pick on big data, or th- those are all places to stop and stand and stare. A
Yeah, yeah,
CIO's job is to get it all moving and to action it and to not sit and study it, but to really deploy it with true meaning. And maybe even in today's day, with less about getting a return down to the penny, and more about getting the employee base up to speed on what it means to deal with technology in business today. And I
hmm,
think the CIOs have missed that in the past while they've been trying to manage SLAs and rather than tap into their creative juices and say, okay, how can we invigorate, in our case, 4,500 employees
right, right.
versus, 50 IT people that all know it that are trying to push an army of people to leverage it. Well, how about we just let go of it? And as CIOs, we say, we're going to really be of service to you so that you come up to speed on technology and are able to use it for the better benefit of the company.
Yeah, it's almost that citizen, not necessarily citizen coder, but it's the digital citizenship is what I'm trying to get to, right? And that just cybersecurity, as an example, is
Yeah.
everyone's responsibility, just not the CIO or the CISO. It's everybody's responsibility.
It is. It takes a team or it takes a village, as they say, right, to raise a
Yeah,
kid.
Yep.
It takes a village to protect your data set, especially in a global environment where you've got, your legal function is interested in it, your HR group is interested in it, and you're really out to take care of the employees' data. So you do have to kind of circle the wagons and protect each other in that regard. And that's the CIO. The CIO has had to be a team champion, a cheerleader, a facilitator, an administrator, an ideator, an innovator, a strategist, and
Yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time be able to deliver tactical change to an organization to really be effective today.
Well, Jamie, we're at that point in our conversation that's my favorite part of the show, which is the call to action.
Mhm.
What are one or two things that our listeners should do differently tomorrow because they listened to our conversation today?
I think one of the most productive things you can do is sit down with your HR leader and define what work means today. I think there's been a tectonic shift over this pandemic in how people view their contribution to companies,
Mhm.
whether that's in accounts payable, whether that's in purchasing, whether that's on the shop floor. I think companies need to sit back and define, okay, in light of digital reach, in light of these automation platforms, how are we going to work?
Yeah.
What are we expecting of our employees? And I think IT can lead that discussion because they know how to work in digital because they've been doing it, for many, many years.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Define what work is in this new world we find ourselves in.
Hmm.
Jamie, as always, I love our conversations. I feel like I walk away with 3 or 4 nuggets every time. I was jotting notes furiously as you were talking. Uh, I, for one, can't wait to go back and re-listen to this because I'm sure I missed some of your nuances. But I want to thank you for taking the time out. I know that the day in the life of a CIO is pretty demanding, and I appreciate you carving out some time to talk to us. So thank you very much.
Jeff, I appreciate the invitation. Good to talk to you as well. Take care.
And I may take you up on that invitation to show up at Dallas one day. Who knows? I'll bring my boots and we'll go out and have a beer.
Well, we'll add a cowboy hat to it as well.
Hey, there you go. There you go. To our listeners, if you have a question or want to learn more, visit intervision.com. The show notes will provide links and contact information. This is Jeff Tunn for Jamie Lee. Thank you very much for listening.
You've been listening to the Status Go podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or get more information at intervision.com. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, find Intervision on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.